and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety program in a new year. Here we are. I hope everybody had a nice New Year's, and we're continuing the good work of the Variety program. Hardest working folks in show business.
That's right, never a day off.
Yeah, a new year, same me, just as angry.
He's even more pissed.
Hope you're happy.
He's even more pissed.
That's I aim to be angrier and meaner.
Yeah, my New Year's resolution is to try to get ratioed more on Twitter.
Good.
Anger every fan of every candidate in this country if possible. And I don't know.
That's a good one.
I think it's pretty good, right?
That's pretty good. It's pretty good. Well, it's a new year. It's obviously a big one in 2024. We're having a big presidential election. Lots to cover. We look forward to doing it all year long with you as we go about doing this. But we're going to start the new year where we left off 2023 with a part 2 of a very special episode of questions and answers. We owe it to you as an audience to be able to write in and ask whatever the hell you want. So far, in terms of part 1, I feel like there was a couple of showstoppers there that threw me off my game a little bit.
I mean, excellent questions. And, you know, if it's a sign of things to come, this should be a pretty entertaining one. And the reception from the audience was pretty good for the last one, so I'm excited for this.
Yeah, part 1, you called me like a nerd and a virgin for like 3 minutes, and then I tacked you back and said, you don't look as good on camera as you think. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty good Q&A.
Well, it was. Yeah, I think that's basic. You got the gist of it, folks. That's just about the way things work around here.
So be prepared for fireworks is all I'm saying. You don't want to miss these episodes because they're pretty freewheeling.
And just enjoy my excellent skin. So here we go. Before we start, I do want to say our YouTube is blowing up. People seem to love that. If you haven't subscribed to that yet, you got to go to our YouTube page. I think you're going to love it because you can see
the skin
and the skin and the shenanigans.
That's it.
Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, we're going to start where we left off. A new question, and the first one I believe goes to Smash. Where do we start here, pal?
Okay, this one is from RJ and KJ. It's a dual submission.
Okay.
And the question is, hi. Came to the show through Megan, like a lot of others, but in no criticism to the wonderful job Megan does. But the fellas have replaced her as my number 1 listened to podcast.
Oh, that's very kind.
Thank you.
As an Australian.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. I feel like that's even doubly amazing on the amount of times that we've insulted.
Down under.
Yeah. Okay.
As an Australian, I'm amused by the talk of the attacks on the animal kingdom.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. They know down there.
Nobody knows it like they do.
It's a testing ground for Satan. That's just a Tuesday here in Australia where most animals try to kill one another on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Perhaps in the coming war, Australia can be a basic training venue for people for the ethical treatment of people army.
There it is.
I
Sounds
think
good.
that's a great
I
idea.
like that.
Great idea. My question is, can you please organize an off-site show? Example, Republican debate pregame, where Smug has to attend with you, but instead of organizing fights with a reputable airline, you book Southwest with no option for Smug to change to be able to get to the show, and you have an Irish-Italian mafia video, Smug on the flight.
Yeah.
With an introduction as you get on board by Smash in his best fight announcer voice. Ladies and gentlemen and fight fans around the world, let's get ready to rumble.
I mean, I thought that was just like what normally happens. Isn't there like an announcement like that to board the flight? Like everyone bring your brass knuckles.
Well, no,
and chains?
I think it's like you throw the line of pellets, and that's how you get them all herded on.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
Doing it on a holiday when families are traveling is when I think the best results will be had. Mm-hmm. Imagining Smug's response, I think you'll need to have a warning label on the footage and counseling for Smug post-flight, though. The old man might be able to create a subdomain and merch of various sayings that Smug drops en route. Regards, RJ and KJ.
So the basic gist of this is that we come up with a program that exclusively features Smug boarding a Southwest flight.
Yeah.
And riding with full Irish and Italian entertainment throughout.
Yeah.
I mean, I really can't think of anything worse. And like, if you go back when Ashbrook was reading it, he was like, organizing a fight on Southwest, not a flight. But he's actually more accurate because it's basically that. I mean, pretty much every video that goes out there of like, there was a fight, people start punching each other, whether it's in the terminal or on the flight, it's Southwest, like without exception. I don't know what it is.
You know what I'm picturing is the scene in Titanic when Kate Winslet goes down to steerage class.
Wait,
You know?
which scene are you talking about?
Oh, well,
we're
there's a
gonna
lot
get
of good
Smug
ones.
laying on the Barca lounger.
No. I'm talking about when she goes down to steerage class, and there's a lot of the Irish immigrants and stuff, and they're playing their Irish tunes and they're dancing, and maybe that's what Southwest would be like for you. We'll get some Irish and some Italians there with you.
There's a part of that movie that gets brought up. I think it's McDaniel who always says, I remind him of the dude who's like, will we evacuate by class? Like, that would be my question.
A tuxedo with tails.
Yeah, be like, I gotta go, folks. I'm number one and out of here.
He'd be wrapped up like a Taliban woman. I know that.
Yeah.
It's just
fully
I mean, I think at
protected.
I think at this point, everyone knows Southwest is pretty much the worst airline, right? And the thing is that they don't have to do anything about it. That's the airline industry, folks. You can be terrible and get away with it.
Look, I do want to spend some money to have a crew with you on a Southwest flight. But I think I appreciate this, RJ and KJ, but I want to save that coin for when Smug has to travel with his baby.
I'm just hoping and praying that we get to that point.
We're all going to travel. And what's going to happen is we're going to book first class.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a crew with him and coach, and we're going to capture all that footage.
I think that's terrific.
Never gonna happen.
We'll send a drink back to you. Don't worry, pal.
They don't have first class on Southwest, right? They don't believe in anything. It's just it's air
all one
steerage,
thing.
dude. It's like when you're transporting animals. In the cargo container they go.
You made it very clear. All right, so skipping ahead to question 2, Duncan, this one's yours.
Oh, okay. This is from Mackenzie. Hello. Would love to hear the fellas' perspectives on how voters can best educate themselves for local elections. I live in Houston and vote in every single election. I often find it overwhelming to research the candidates for city council, judges, etc. I usually default to looking at who has endorsed them. Appreciate any advice, Mackenzie.
You know, it's a great question. And honestly, what we've seen over the last 20 years is this huge degrading of local publications and local sort of county information that you get. And the stuff that you do get is basically left-wing gibberish, where, they'll talk to a school board official about anything other than what you want to know in terms of their positions on how they would run a school. And so let me just say to Mackenzie what I do, and you can take it for what it's worth. I go to my polling place, and it's foolproof. I go to my polling place on the day of the election, and I find the Democratic Party activist, and they typically provide a sample ballot for me with all of the choices that they would like to be filled in. And then I take it in with me, and for anything that I'm not already educated on, some of these local things, whatever they have, I do the opposite.
Yeah.
That's usually
and
good
so
time.
far, it's worked out great for me.
Right. And then you have to remember, you just got to vote against the bond every single time on everything. And if there isn't a candidate that you can support, then you write in Ron Paul. That's what I do.
Jesus, is that really? You still do that?
I still do that.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that just like it like a funny joke you play with yourself?
No, it's my protest against a government I don't approve of. So, I agree 100% on all that stuff. I mean, sometimes you can find, if you look for your local Republican Party in the county.
But it depends on where you live.
That's the thing is, like, that used to be reliable. But now there's the vast majority of local parties are doing great, but like there are situations across this country where local parties aren't what they used to be.
Yes,
like mine. I mean,
in Houston, I imagine that they are a good resource.
I would think.
And there's a lot of places where they aren't.
Yeah.
But you got to do your own research too. I mean, you got to go to all these people's websites and you got to read their stances on the issues. That's the best way to educate yourselves of what the candidates say themselves, not what somebody else says about them.
Also, conversely to what Holmes mentioned, in the rare event, if you live in a mostly blue state, you see that one like battle-hardened 1,000-yard stare dude asking people if they're Republican, want a sample ballot. Grab one of those and thank that dude, because he's probably been like spit on and threatened for the past 4 hours.
It's very true. That guy's advice is well worth it.
And then like one other thing is like, depending on what community you live in, there's usually like one hot button issue every election cycle.
Yeah, they'll have to answer on that issue.
If they don't answer on that thing that is important to you as like a single issue voter on something like city council, where like that's a telltale, right? You can't vote for that person. At that point, you find the person or you write in Ron Paul.
Right.
And lastly, this is more in the weeds. Last thing I want to say is sometimes in a lot of counties I've experienced this, where, especially for judges, it becomes like this horse trading game of the local parties where they're like, oh, for this slot of judge, we won't, as the Republican Party, we won't contest it and let the Democrat have it as long as for this slot, the Democrats don't contest it and we'll let I find out about that because that bothers me and I will never vote for them. If I know that there's been horse trading going on and that the person in the Republican slot is actually a registered Democrat and that this was a trade-off, not happening. But judges are incredibly important to vote for, so I think that is worth researching.
Yeah, no, it is. Smash, any tips?
I think that local elections should give you the opportunity to actually talk to the person who's running.
Good point.
And if the person who's running will not carry on a conversation with you, and I'm not saying you ask them their views on the war in Ukraine. I'm saying you ask them their views on development or funding police or local schools. If they will not acknowledge you, if they won't carry on a conversation with you as if, you're somebody who's important, they're not worth voting for.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good. That's good advice.
And I think that local elections give you the ability to figure that out.
That's smart. That's smart. So there's your advice. Heading forward here to question 3. I believe this one is Smug's.
Excellent. So this is from Adam. The question is, fellas, when is the program going to compile all of Smug's parenting advice and publish the work for the benefit of American parents?
Here's the thing. I think we should release a book called What to Expect When Smug's Expecting. Because when Smug actually becomes a father, it's going to be the greatest moment in the history of the program.
I can't wait for the first time he sincerely asks me for advice. I can't wait. I'm going to videotape it.
So it continues. It says, the iPad, iPhone parents are out of control. Totally agree. As a father of 4 kids, 16 and younger, God bless you, and seeing the impacts of poor parenting in the other kids that my children are forced to interact with, I can tell you that Smug's parenting advice is deeply needed in our country and indeed maybe the only path to save America. This guy is right on. At the very least, there should be a monthly segment on the show where Smug can share his parenting wisdom with the fellas and the minions. Regards,
monthly?
Adam.
I feel like it's bi-weekly.
I mean, I think he makes a lot of strong points. And a couple of things, actually, to answer this. So I don't know if folks follow David Seawright on Twitter. He's a very good friend of mine, friend of Ashbrook's, go to the same church. Terrific family guy, also good at smoking meat, barbecuing. And he genuinely has really terrific parenting advice. I've talked to him about all these things in the past. He offers tremendously good advice. And also, as an aside, there's been interest in a book deal. I'm weighing that over the holidays, and this might be part of it. I think the American people deserve to know how to parent children in a good way, and I can offer them that insight.
Everyone looks to someone who's never had kids for parenting advice. I mean, I can't imagine what could
just having kids doesn't make you a good parent. Discipline does.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of people who talk about politics who've never worked in it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
You know?
No, parenting, sports, and politics. Those are the 3 things that you can have strong opinions about despite no experience at all.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, good. I look forward to the book. All right. Next question goes to me. This is from J.H. Question. Hi, fellas. I, like many of you, found you through Megyn Kelly. I've never looked back since then. You provide a much-needed comic relief we face in these troubling times. I'm also drawn in by your political insight for us outsiders. For instance, I was previously unaware of the difference in TV spending between Super PAC versus a candidate's own campaign. My question is to you guys is, what are the top 3 or 4 important insider things that us outsiders should know regarding anything in regards to politics? It can be anything from campaign finance to how a bill makes it through Congress. I know that there are a lot of hidden bits of information that do not reach the masses. Please help us educate this outsider from Texas on the unknown truths of the inner workings of the political workings of our government. FYI, I may just have to vote for Smug in this next election.
Good idea.
These elections are starting to come together. I would love to hear Smug's platform promises to America, and maybe that's the book.
Yeah.
Promises to America.
I think that's a great title.
Yeah. Seriously, I enjoy the show and look forward to future episodes. Please keep up the good work and hold the line. Respectfully, J.H. All right, so fellas, what, just on the top of your heads, is something that you think people ought to know that don't know? Smash, do you have something you're thinking of?
It's a very, very good question. And I think that if I'm going to weigh in on this, it's going to be on the press side. And, we talk a lot about how news organizations are full of Democrat-leaning culture. They're full of libs. They're run by libs. The decisions are made by libs. And there are generally libs who are attracted to the field of journalism. However, there are also people who are writing stories about campaigns and politics who are more interested in facts than their bosses are. And so I think that you can find stories that are worth reading by reporter name and know that that person is doing everything they can to deliver the information to you rather than the spin their editor wants you to shove down your throat. Mm-hmm. So I think that that is something that most people don't realize about politics today, that there are actually some reporters who do a good job. It's very difficult to figure out who they are because it's not necessarily, there are reporters at conservative outlets who are lazy and not doing a good job. There are reporters at lib outlets who want to ruin your life and hate your guts. So it's really hard to figure that out. The only way that you can do it is by reading and reading and reading and reading and following things like the Variety Program, following people on Twitter, like all of us, and Comfortably Smug and the Minions, and then you get to know the truth. And I know that Smug often retweets reporters who are telling the truth.
Off the top of my head, like Gabe Kaminsky's been doing an insane amount of good journalism. He's at a conservative outlet, but at the same time, all of his articles are basically he goes through filings and paperwork and does all the boring stuff no one wants to do, and then finds these dynamite pieces of information, like a left-wing dark money group that's getting money from China, or all this overseas money from like Hans-Jörg Wyss that's flooding in this country. So he's one of my top followers. Who are some journals that you recommend?
There are a bunch, and I'm not going to list them here.
Wow. Excellent advice. Thanks for that insight.
I am not going to.
There's some great insider info.
Just incredible.
I'm not going to list them here, but I'm also interested in what Michael Duncan thinks.
That's insane.
What an awesome. And welcome to the Briar Patch, Michael. What can you serve us up?
The thing that really bothers me a lot is, you're going to hear a lot of politicians, especially Republican politicians, talk about runaway government spending and our national debt. And if they don't have a serious plan to fix the crisis that our country is going to face over the next 10 to 20 years in Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare, then they aren't a serious person. And we have a lot of people who go on television every night and talk about some government waste and some cherry picking something that is irresponsible, and I'm sure it is. But you aren't a serious person if you aren't talking about Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. You just aren't. Yeah. You just aren't. Not if you're going to sit there on the House floor and give a stem winder for 5 minutes about the next generation and our debt crisis. You just aren't. I don't care what your opinion is on funding Ukraine, but we spend more in this country in 18 days on Social Security than we've spent in 3 years funding the fight in Ukraine.
Yeah,
in 19 days.
Nobody knows that.
And that doesn't count the service on our debt, which is going to be like a larger share of anything in the next decade or whatever. And you're going to hear a lot of politicians talk about spending and all of this waste and the Biden stuff, but like at the end of the day, we're talking about discretionary spending in our budget, which is 30% of the overall budget. We're not even having a serious discussion about any of this in this town, and it makes me furious because we're supposed to be the party that cares about these things, and we just frankly don't really care. So, I know that's a long buildup, but like my one thing as a quote unquote insider in politics is I wish more voters on the outside demanded that of people.
Wow.
Like, politicians respond to incentives, especially if you're under the age of 65 in this country. Please wake up and demand it of your politicians. You know, like, they respond to those incentives, and if we don't mention it to them, they're not going to give a shit.
Yeah.
And if you are a Zoomer or a young millennial listening to this, and you're looking at your paycheck going to Social Security and Medicare every single month, like, you should care. Yep. You should care a hell of a lot more than what our politicians are currently providing. And that is my number one recommendation.
I love that.
That's rock solid.
So I think mine's sort of a derivation of that, in that I think it is the case that the highest number of Senate seats that the Republican Party has ever had is 55. And it requires 60 to get anything done. I mean, I'm talking about the history of the Republic stuff here. I'm not talking about in the last 5 years. So one of the things that bothers me the most is that we have valued, from an outsider perspective, the loudest voices in the room and the ones who are the most captivating to a very small sliver of the electorate overall. Now, the truth is we live in a pretty divided country. I mean, it's maybe not 50-50, but it's pretty damn close. And the likelihood of us ever having conservative codlock on American government, where you have a Republican president, 60-plus seats in the Senate, and huge 30, 40-plus number of seats in the House, it's pretty remote, or it probably would have happened already.
Yeah.
You know, because we're dealing with, again, a pretty divided, diverse country politically. So what I would say is you have to look beyond the loudest voice in the room to figure out who is the most persuasive. And what I've found is the people who are most effective in Washington, D.C. are people who have no less conservative viewpoints than the loudest voice in the room. But their goal is to try to figure out how to persuade the center-right, center-left to carry their position forward, to actually do something about it. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And those are the kinds of things that are the difference between making a point and making a law. And if you're making laws and you're changing things and bringing this country more into a center-right perspective, God knows that is necessary today. As you look at all the left-wing maniacal shit that we've been doing here over the last 3 years, I mean, we've pushed American government beyond center-left, in my view, into sort of a leftist approach. Sure. To remedy that, you need people on the conservative side that have the capability of bringing a coalition of people to change it.
Mm-hmm. And that involves having people in your coalition that agree with you 85% of the time, not 100% of the time.
Yeah, and it's not just about inner, like, Republican primary stuff. It's about making relationships.
Right.
And it's about doing tough things and taking some heat from your own side in the goal of trying to get something broader than that done that is on the conservative side of the ledger. So I would put greater value in that. And that's the one thing that I think is often lost on the right that the left really gets. Like, you may ask yourself why it is that somebody like AOC is hanging out with somebody like Joe Biden. Yeah. Well, it's because Joe Biden's doing AOC stuff now.
I think it's a great point. I think that there are a lot of conservatives who have so much to offer and who are doing so much work that fly under the radar, and nobody knows about what they're doing to try to change things at the border or change things for everyday people, because they're not on primetime Fox or because they don't have 5 million Twitter followers or something like that. And I think that's one of my favorite things about this show, actually, is that we give a platform to the people who are actually doing the work, who are like digging and digging and digging every single day and may not get the fanfare, but they're doing what conservatives want them to do. And I feel like our show gives them the opportunity to highlight that.
I think that's right. And one other quick thing, just on the pure politics side, one disappointing thing you probably don't know about, because it's not self-evident, is the amount of consultant-driven partnerships that are done in this town. Everything from what politicians are working together to what causes they're pushing. And there's a through line on an awful lot of this that is very corrosive and disturbing. Like, from my standpoint, extremely concerning, in that somebody's paying somebody who consults with somebody who also happens to have this candidate, and all of a sudden you got a coalition. And That's the reality of it. It sucks. And you watch it happen right now. And you can see if there are a couple of people teaming up you don't feel like have the same set of ideology, go ahead, have a look at that FEC report.
Yeah.
Have a look and see who it is that their consultants are. Or if you get like a random endorsement in there, then you're like, wow, that's funny. This person is endorsing an interesting slate of candidates that, I don't know, they all happen to work for the same consultant. That kind of thing is a corrosive, and when people talk about what is wrong with Washington, they're missing the forest through the trees if you're not doing that basic homework. Because that basic homework, I think, goes an awful long way, and it's amazing to me how little attention it often gets.
Mm-hmm.
That's solid insight. That's really good.
What would you say, Smug?
Well, I think you guys did a great job of the insidery information. I want to answer this great question, the second part where they said I may have to vote for Smug and what would Smug's platform be. And I've given this a lot of thought. One of the things is, I think about, for example, the border crisis, right? Like, this is essentially the only country in the world where if you ran through a border crossing, guards aren't shooting. That's just so weird to me. That, like, any other country, if you charge through their border, there's gunshots fired because you're illegally. It's like a military action. You're invading a foreign sovereign nation. Like, nothing gives you that right. If you want to try and apply for asylum, you apply for asylum before you decide to break the law. It seems to me breaking the law, invading a country is a bad idea. So I call that part of my platform mortars to the border, right? Send the mortars, and you make an exclusion zone where there's shells that are falling. It doesn't seem like a good place for coyotes to hang out if there's shells. So I think that's the start of it, is I think there's no consequences left in society, which is a lack of consequences is where the Democrat Party thrives. So essentially, I think my ideology and my platform is based on consequences. If there's an action that's not helping this country, there's going to be hell to pay.
Like, for example, if you're like BFing a dude in a committee hearing room, like that would get some kind of a smug consequence.
I mean, again, like that gets so much of like, we've been told this is a sacred temple of democracy, and it's like, oh, well, it seems like only one side's pushing that idea, and they're the ones who are not following it.
Can I add one thing to your platform I think you would agree with?
Sure.
Bring back stocks. People get tomatoes thrown on their faces.
I like that a lot.
Oh, public humiliation.
Yeah. Shame.
Yes,
Just shame.
Shame in general. Great
Reintroducing shame
to our culture.
That would be a good one.
Dude,
yeah.
Excellent.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next question. Question 5. This is again for Smash.
This one comes from Jake, and Jake's question for the fellas. My young son ate a delicious pasta and meatball dinner the other night. Shortly thereafter, we watched a recent episode of the Ruthless variety program that contained use of the soundboard playing a classic Italian song.
Oh, Mamma mia.
At what age would you say it's appropriate to educate my son on the risks of joining certain ethnic organizations? Yours truly, Jake.
That's Smug. What's your? How do we?
So is this ethnic organizations in like, the Knights of Columbus, which is basically just like Italians legally beating people up or something?
What?
Oh my God! Is that
Knights of Columbus?
It's like a Catholic
That's what I always heard.
It's a Catholic organization.
I heard in Boston, like the Knights of Columbus is like you don't cross the Knights of Columbus.
Come on.
Like the Irish know you don't mess with the Knights of Columbus.
The Knights of Columbus are helping raise money for my kid's school.
They're not riding horses with swords.
The source of this is Jack Nicholson's
like it's all
character.
gangs of New York.
They're like real knights.
Jack Nicholson's
They're not at the
character
5 points.
in The Departed said
They're sitting
the Knights of Columbus crack skulls. And I trust Jack Nicholson's character in The Departed.
They're sitting at a folding table drinking Coors Light and ripping off bingo tabs.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's what they do during office hours. But afterwards, according to Jack Nicholson's character in The Departed, they're cracking skulls in Boston.
The Knights of Columbus.
Any of you guys want to field this one?
Okay. I can do that.
Oh,
I can
really?
definitely do that.
Okay.
So first we're going to give him one of these pasta and meatball lunches, not dinner. And then you're going to take your young son out to the backyard and you're going to have him do burpees and up downs until he throws up. And then he's going to no longer enjoy that food.
What? No.
Driving hatred for Italian cuisine in your child through burpees.
It's like
I didn't think it could get worse than the Knights of Columbus, but you made it worse.
It's like if you catch your kid smoking, you make him smoke the whole pack. It's the same sort of thing.
That's how you make them See, that's the thing is,
Spaghetti's a pretty like who doesn't have spaghetti one night a week?
All I am doing is I am answering the question that was provided to me. If you would like your child to know that meal is a little too heavy when you've got stuff to do.
I don't think it's the meal that he's worried about. I think he's worried that his son is going to hang out eating pasta fagioli, and the next thing you know, he's shaking down the local corner store.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
And
well,
how do you know? How do you know? By the way, it's too heavy to do something important. What do you think Christopher Columbus ate before he sailed the ocean blue? For crying out loud!
Okay.
You think he just came over here on an empty stomach?
Well, then you have to.
What do you think Joe DiMaggio did before he had a 54-game hitting streak?
Excellent point.
Probably Marilyn Monroe, right?
You got it.
I think that's the answer to that one.
I got a great story on that, by the way. I got a great story on that.
I mean, look, I think you can solve this pretty easily then with a supercut of highlights of your favorite mafia movies.
Yeah.
The baseball bat in the cornfield scene from Casino. Mm-hmm. The bar fight scene from Goodfellas.
Sure.
The toll booth scene from The Godfather.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that sort of supercut video and you say this is what your future is if you continue down this path.
That's a good point.
And if you're worried about the cuisine, you just make him eat the Irish style. Have him serving potatoes like 10 days.
That's
in a
not-
row.
if you really want to make him
that'll
out.
send them right back to the Italian. For the record, I love Italian food.
I do too.
Who doesn't?
Some of my favorite.
Who doesn't?
Some of my favorite. All right. Question number 6. This is for Duncan.
Okay. This is from Andrew. Fellows of the Variety Program. First, thank you all for a political podcast that isn't just about raging at issues, but giving cogent political analysis regarding the issues facing our country. This includes Ashbrook sounding the alarm about the imminent threat animals pose to humanity, a la the novel and short series Zoo by John Patterson. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. My question for each of you is something that you ask every guest. Are you a thrill of victory or agony of defeat person? And if you can elaborate, what is the greatest victory you've been part of, and or what was the defeat that agonizes you, that motivates you? Thanks, fellas. Wow. P.S. Come to Jacksonville, Florida sometime. I know Duncan. Oh, come on. I know that Duncan might have a problem coming because his Colts can't seem to win a game here. Duval, Andrew. Yeah.
I love that.
I love that Duncan read that one too.
No,
I was set up.
You were set up.
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, look, I think the reason for the question itself is because I'm very much an agony of defeat person, but I know that not everybody is. And it doesn't mean that that's all I think about. I just know that what drives me to succeed is the very thought that someone else is out to try to defeat me doing it. It's not like, hey, what can I do to accomplish this? It's like somebody else is going to try to make sure I can't do this. That's why I'm doing it. And in terms of like the greatest victory, I mean, look, professionally, my greatest victory, I think Smash, you're probably, I'm not going to speak for you, but this probably goes for you too, but the 2014 takeover of the Republican Senate, the sweep that we had on Democrats when everybody thought that was impossible to do, and we had primaries and we had general elections, and it was just a totally hard-fought thing that every step along, literally every single day, you were attacked on both sides and told you couldn't do it. That was the sweetest victory.
Like historically, that's like the murderer's row at the NRSC. Like every single person who was part of that crew has gone on to tremendous success afterwards. But it was like the craziest team there, and the results were just, I mean, it was a bloodbath for Democrats.
It was
destroyed in 2014.
It was a very, very good team, and we had a blast doing it. In terms of defeats, like, look, I don't even rank them because every one of them, it doesn't matter how small or how big, I take them all the same. And that's why I'm an agony of defeat person. I mean, there has never been a defeat so large that I shouldn't be able to get over, but I wake up every morning thinking about it nevertheless. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess that's just the definition of who I am on that deal. Smug, what are you? Agony, thrill?
Yeah, I mean, I would say agony of defeat. Like, if I try to think about the most thrilling victories, I think that's a lot more difficult to think of than, like, I know, like, 4 or 5 times where I've taken an L, and, like, that informs my decision making every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I mean, I don't sleep well because I am always worried, because I always know what it's like for things to go wrong. Mm-hmm. And so pretty much all my days are spent trying to prevent the bad thing from happening, focusing on what things I can control. I think the thing from having defeats is the lessons you learn. That's, you know, that's priceless. I think that's one thing, especially like in tech, they say, you know, bring us a founder who has had tremendous amount of failure, because then they know and have learned from these experiences. Like all the great founders, like Steve Jobs, all of these, you know, titans of industry and stuff have just a record of tremendous losses, a number of times that they were rejected, and that informs your character. And so I think, you know, for me, that's also been formative in terms of it. Mm-hmm. I want to give a little bit of like a light-hearted answer for a tremendous defeat that had an impact on me. This was in 2008. I was in a fantasy football league with really great friends of mine. And my approach to fantasy football is trades. I do as many trades as possible. I create absolute liquidity in the market. Everyone says, oh, my league doesn't trade. Bullshit. Every league I've joined, I've gotten everyone to start trading. You have to do it. And so in short order in this league, and this is with friends I've been playing with since like high school, I eventually built this like, it was like the NFL All-Star game.
Like a super team?
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. I had the top 2 players at every position locked down through trades. Because if you do enough trades and you get enough advantage, I mean, that's what happens. And so they voted to undo my trades as a league, which I think...
Oh, they vetoed?
No, because all of the trades were done completely legally and clear. It's just that in a matter of 72 hours of this, everyone wakes up and they're like, this guy's got the squad. And so they vote. They're like, hold a vote. Should we unwind his team? And it's like, of course they're going to vote too, because they know I'm going to beat them. And so, like, number one, that's when I knew democracy doesn't work, right? And I left that league and haven't talked to those people ever since. You should never forgive people.
What do you got, Duncan? Hope it's not fantasy football.
Okay, well, I could do politics. No, I'm going to do, I'll do wrestling.
Oh, that's good. You in a singlet? Do we have any visuals?
I'll do all wrestling. So I don't want to take all the political answers.
Okay.
Greatest thrill of victory moment. Probably beating David Cathcart in the sectional championship.
I've never heard of him.
You've never heard of him?
You've absolutely won.
Well, you got to understand which motivates all of us is people telling you like this is something you're gonna be able to do, sort of thing. And he's actually really nice kid, but he went to like the powerhouse Catholic school in the city that like won everything, you know. Like they'd win like 80% of the weight classes at sectionals every single year, and I went to a small private school that barely had a wrestling team.
Right.
You know, and like we always lost and we, you know, went to the sectional at like their gym, and it's like 80% guys. It's from Cathedral High School is his high school, and small contingent from our, you know, small private school, and you know, I beat him under the lights, you know, dark room under the light, pinned him.
What was the move?
I snapped him down and did like a gator roll to his back, pinned him.
And then you put your balls on his face?
Didn't have to do that.
The tea bag is optional, but it's
sort of get him like that, and you sort of get him going one way, and then roll him back that way.
There you go. There you go. That's a good victory.
It was a great victory, you know? Biggest agony defeat in wrestling. Again, this is like 20 years ago, and it's still like it was fucking yesterday. You know, I never forget a single thing.
You lost to a girl, didn't you?
No. No. Greatest agony of defeat is against Nick Hartman in county in the quarterfinals of county. He was the number 1 wrestler in the state, and I had no business wrestling against him. And he went on to win the state championship. This guy was a fucking freak. I think he went on to wrestle at IU.
Got it.
And he also like cut like 35 pounds to get into my weight class.
Damn.
And so he's like incredibly physical guy. And like nobody had like scored a point on him. Like he was undefeated on the season. I think he only lost 1 match the entire year. He's like 42-1. And I come up to him in county, and I'm a freshman, and I'm wrestling like 103 or 112, and I'm like barely that soaking wet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The guy's like cutting weight down from like 145. Number 1 wrestler in this state. And match starts, and I immediately take him down. And the guy had like never been taken down, and was like fucking shocked by that fact. And you know, I'm a freshman in high school. He's a senior, and the number 1 wrestler in the state. Took him down. Totally was unprepared.
Right.
I was unprepared for victory.
Yeah.
And I have learned in the rest of my life so much from that one moment.
Wow.
Because he dominated me the rest of the match, and I lost on points. Like I didn't just like roll over on the guy, but like it unleashed a monster in him.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah.
he was like headbutting me, is extremely physical. He used to do this thing where he'd come into you like this, like he's pretty much like hitting you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I wasn't prepared for what victory would be.
Yeah.
And that's why I ultimately lost. He was a better wrestler than me, but I had surprised him, and I wasn't prepared to win the match.
That's a really good answer.
And I'll never forget that feeling, like coming away from that and being like, I could have actually stolen that. I could have beaten that guy.
Oh,
but
man,
I wasn't
that's
prepared.
good.
And I've let that inform like me and the rest of like my life, my professional career, of like you have to think like that, not only that things are achievable, but like how you're going to achieve it.
Yeah.
And like having a plan is important.
Is there a way that you can like kind of cheat and not get disqualified, but like lose a point or something? Like, could you gouge his eye?
No, you cannot
can't do
gouge
that?
his eye. No.
Balls to the face is the only real.
I mean, like, because if you
remedy
can
to
gouge
any
his
of it.
eye or like, you know,
Is my
handicap the
understanding.
dude, seems like that's the way.
Yeah.
But apparently it doesn't work.
Not balls, not gouging eyes.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
Smash.
Well, I don't have any specific memories that are as lucid as Duncan's on this subject. I am as pure an agony of defeat person as ever walked the face of this planet, because little things on a weekly basis, I don't forget. They drive me forward. I can think of them back to junior high and elementary school. I can think of some victories, some great baseball games I played. I can think of a pick six I had in JV football that makes me smile every now and then. But like, I am fundamentally an agony of defeat person, and at any one moment a synapse will fire, and I think of some guy who made fun of my friends and family when I was a kid, and it just like fires me up to fight against whoever it is that's in front of me that day. And so, like, I don't have specifics for you, but I will tell you that
That's like the Michael Jordan method.
there is no more of an agony defeat person.
It's very true.
Yeah.
A very true answer. No question about it.
I think we're all sort of agony of defeat.
We are, but I've come to appreciate, because of the program, the Thrill of Victory people. Because like I said, it's roughly a 50-50 split of successful people. Mm-hmm. Unsuccessful people are like, I don't know, I like to win, and I obviously don't like to lose, and then they answer something else. And it's like, no, you really know. You know one way, or you're afraid to say it.
Mm-hmm. I know.
And if you're afraid to say it, you're probably afraid to succeed at anything.
But you know what? I agree with you on the thrill of victory. That I've gained more appreciation for it.
Yeah.
Because it's like me being scared shitless made me shoot for a takedown first against that guy. But then I didn't have a plan to win.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
You know what I mean?
And the thrill of victory person may have thought all along, well, yeah, I can beat this guy.
Of course I can win.
Yeah.
You know?
I know it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right, so the next question, I believe this one goes to Duncan.
No, I just read
Smug.
the last.
Smug. This is
This is
Smug.
mine.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm sorry.
So this one comes from Chris. The question is, hey fellas, my brother and I have been longtime listeners of the program. Opportunities to candidly ask very serious questions about the world we want to have for our kids and grandkids don't come along often, but thanks to the program and this episode, we have that chance. We live in an uncertain world, full of threats to our nation, but worse, humanity as a whole. The animal uprising is in its earliest of stages, and so many people are unprepared. My question is this. Are you prepared to do your part? What is the largest animal you can take down in fair combat? Note, rhinos are not a valid response. Smug, so Rubios and Romneys are out. Man. Stolen. As a serious side note, thanks for creating a podcast and platform that families like ours can listen, laugh, and also be more informed. My brother Justin had the chance to meet you guys at the Iowa event. Awesome. A while back, and I'm the brother who couldn't make it due to unforeseen circumstances with my work. I remember this.
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah.
You made his entire month. When he had the chance to speak to you guys, my brother had brought fly fishing ties for Ashbrook, and I planned to bring a bottle of whiskey from Wood Hat Spirits for Holmes next time.
I love that.
What a great guy.
Excellent. And there's the graph.
Yes.
Terrific.
Look, they got Jefferson's Lagavulin.
Oh,
that's so awesome.
Can't
Great
beat it.
stuff. What a stud, Chris. Thanks
And
for
a
writing
great
that.
question. You know, why don't we go to, I would argue, the expert on this first, Ashbrook.
Yeah, you got to go to Ashbrook. He's the animal guy.
Okay, this is the biggest animal that you could take down mano a mano.
Yeah.
I think I could take down an elephant. I fully believe that I could do it. I fully believe that I could do it. I think you take it from its most vulnerable point. That starts with its eyes, and then you take the trunk and you shove it down its throat. They can't breathe.
You just take the trunk?
Yeah, you take it.
You take the
It's
trunk.
not going to fight you.
It won't, because it can't see you.
Because you've gouged its eyes. So it's eyes and then trunk shove.
Then it tips over, and you take hoof 1, hoof 2, hoof 3, hoof 4, and you send one to each of your friends as a table for their living room. An elephant.
Okay. All right, Duncan, how are you going to follow that?
Okay, well, there's some wiggle room here in our question that I've realized over time. The largest animal, it doesn't mean the most dangerous animal.
No.
And I learned from my friend John Ashbrook in our many discussions of the
I was
whales
about to use this.
that you just got to plug the blowhole.
Yep.
So what I do is I find the largest animal on planet Earth, the blue whale, and I plug the blowhole.
What do you use to plug the blowhole, Michael?
A giant cork. I go.
But no foreign objects.
Well, I'm
Bare hands is the question.
So I steal the answer. I put my arm in the blowhole.
Yeah. I'll put my entire body in the blowhole.
Duncan's
You
copying.
you write it down to the bottom of the ocean.
You put yourself in the blowhole?
Well, no. I mean, I think that the blue whale instinctually would actually try to rise to the surface in order to get air because they can't breathe underwater. I don't know if you don't know that, John. So I don't think instinctually he would dive deeper. If he couldn't breathe, he would try to crest outside of the water.
Try to jump around, but
But the problem is I'm in the blowhole.
I mean, I think that's the way. 100%. And I mean, here's the thing: is like,
So let me just get this straight. You've inserted yourself into the blowhole.
Yeah.
And that's the plan.
I'm just like, I'm just going to shimmy down into the blowhole
And wait.
and wait.
Which
Yeah.
can take hours.
Could be uncomfortable. Could be uncomfortable.
Okay.
but I mean, the thing is that I mean, that was my thinking.
Okay.
Straight up, as soon as the question was read, and imagine the sense of like accomplishment after that. Just like standing atop this dead whale that you've killed. So what are they, like 100 tons, 200 tons? Like monsters.
Biggest animal ever on the planet.
Think
And
about
it's
the
your
ambergris.
trophy.
Think about the ambergris you could sell.
Yeah,
I mean, and they're a
would
renewable resource.
You'd
You
light
could
your
fuel
house
it-
for the
fuel
rest of your life.
A nation.
I mean,
Yes,
I bet that those things are worth a ton of cash too. You know,
Yeah.
in terms of like the oil that you can mine from this damn thing.
So you'd put yourself in the blowhole as well?
Yeah, and then I'm going straight to calling my commodities guy, J.P. Morgan, and be like, can I speak to the energy desk?
Yeah.
Energy desk.
Energy desk.
I have
I've got a deal.
a whale for you.
You got to take physical delivery. I'm in the North Atlantic.
I am currently stuck in a blowhole.
I think
On my iPhone.
I don't think. Have you ever told the story about your buddy who was trading options?
No. I mean, this is a good.
Look, this is the air it all out episode. I think considering he brought up a commodities market, we should tell this story.
Yeah, well, so this is a friend who fashioned himself as a trader, since had become a pretty successful trader, but he was doing this at a very young age, came from a finance background in his family or whatnot, and so he was basically day trading futures and commodities. And he bought just a ton of wheat, if memory serves. And it was a very impressive return that he was sitting upon. But it got better and better and better. And so, but he was a college kid. And he'd forgotten about the delivery
Wait, he set to physical delivery?
of the futures. Well, he didn't offload him. So that he bought these commodities.
He gets a call.
And he gets a call, and they're like, would you like 800 tons of wheat delivered? And he lives in a dorm room on a college campus. Long and the short of it is he got it figured out, but it was a real eye-opener.
Yeah, I mean, that's always the best. Is like when people forget the physical delivery at expiration.
Yeah, right.
It's like, well, I got like 10,000 barrels of oil I got to find storage for.
Figure this out.
Incredible.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what happened.
Who you taking, Holmes?
So not a lot of you guys know this, but giraffes, very large animal.
Yeah.
And you see them kind of prance around or whatever, but they can be ferocious. But the way that they fight is they whip their huge neck, right? And so, like, if something attacks them, they come at them and then whip their massive neck at them.
Yeah.
And, like, smack them with their necks. And that they can take pretty large stuff down. So my thought is how to take this thing out is that, you gotta provoke it a little bit. You get it coming at you. And you got to dance around it because, they have like horse-like tendencies. They're not slow animals, so you got to, but you have to get yourself up to some sort of a hard surface. I'm thinking where you'd find them most likely some kind of a tree. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of slap the face or the neck of this thing and have it wind up and have it hammer the side of the tree.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Very, very.
Because
Old switcheroo.
if you fight with your head, you're vulnerable to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's a quick knockout.
So quick knockout, it's down, and then and then I can get on the neck and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like ring it like a goose.
finish the job.
Yeah. That's smart.
Pretty good, right?
That's
Pretty smart.
Miyagi-like.
It's pretty good. Anyway, these are pretty good animal answers. I didn't expect the whale to have 2 entries,
Yeah.
but it is the largest, so I guess I get it.
I thought about doing the whale, but I sort of assumed everybody was going to do it. I mean,
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Everybody's going to attack the old man.
Oh, here we go.
Guess it's just another program.
All right, next question. Hey, fellas, here's my question. This is from Wallace. Hope you'll consider including in your Q&A episode. Well, here it is, Wallace. In 2016, Rubio, Cruz, and Kasich stayed in long enough for Trump to successfully divide and conquer. What is the latest point in 2024 that all but one of the non-Trump candidates need to drop out to have any real chance to defeat him in a head-to-head? Seems to me like before Super Tuesday. Follow-up question, do you think there's any real chance that could happen? Kind of hoping Haley and DeSantis cut some kind of deal and run as a team. Thanks, Wallace. Smug ruined it when he discussed my killing of a turkey with a Mercedes-Benz back in 2022.
I mean, that's an outstanding thing to do. Excellent maneuver. This should be celebrated.
It should be celebrated. All right. So, Duncan, we've talked about this a lot on the show. And we've talked about this consolidation happening a little quicker than it did in 2016, but it's now kind of fish or cut bait time. What's your answer to what's the latest time for them to do this?
I think it has to be one candidate that's not Donald Trump after South Carolina.
Yeah.
I think it's as simple as that. Look, if the nominee is Donald Trump, it's Donald Trump. But if it's not Donald Trump, then I think that candidate needs to beat him in an open contest. Mm-hmm. For all of our discussion of the pending indictments and potential felony convictions of Trump and all of that sort of stuff, Like,
it can't be like a convention or something.
I think a scenario like that is just poison for the Republican Party. If it's some sort of brokered situation where somebody's, tries to replace the top vote getter, if that's Donald Trump. Like, I just don't see how a Republican Party unifies and ends up winning in November if that's the case. I think you have to offer the Republican electorate one single alternative and give them the opportunity. And I don't think you can wait around until, in 16 he didn't clinch it till May in Indiana. I think by South Carolina it has to be one alternative. I
think this is a cycle unlike any we've seen before. We've never had a major party candidate be indicted once, much less 90 plus times. We've never had a major party candidate be potentially convicted and incarcerated before. I think that we are facing dynamics we've never seen, and so we are breaking new ground on a weekly basis in this campaign. And Trump seems really strong right now, and all indications are that he'll remain strong as far as Republican primary voters are concerned. And so I don't think that there's any possible way to put a date on when you have to be out or when you have to consolidate, because we just don't know. How can anybody possibly know what Republican primary voter reaction is going to be to a Trump conviction? They might think, hell yeah, we're behind him all the way. They might not. We don't know. That's just being honest.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can look at the 2024 cycle through a historical lens, because it is something we've never seen before.
That's a good answer. Smug, what's your take?
I think they pretty much nailed it. I agree with Duncan that it is going to come down to after South Carolina, but my thinking is it probably won't happen. I think this cycle, while unprecedented, is also in a lot of ways similar to 2016, and I don't think any candidate is going to drop. It's a tough thing because these are essentially pretty much every single remaining candidate has one major election before, right? Mm-hmm. So someone who has won an election, it's hard to tell them, well, stop running, because everyone thinks
we know you dedicated 2 years of your life for this, but
and like from city council up, anyone who's won elected office, it crosses their head, hey, I could be president, Mm-hmm. So like you can't get people to get that out of their heads. I think another thing to consider is kind of like how Ashbrook said, yes, it's unprecedented in some ways, but there's going to be this bonanza, like there's like every 4 years, of journalists writing stories about like how a contested convention works. Mm-hmm. And they love writing that content because it fills space and, gets them to their quota of how many words they have to write. Mm-hmm. But it's never going to happen. Like there's never going to be a contested convention. Everyone should get that idea out of your head. Like I remember in 2016 there was like, will there be a showdown at the convention and like all these people are going to be cutting? No, that doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. Not going to happen. And I think, if you have Super Tuesday with multiple candidates, I think we all know how that's going to go.
Yeah. I think that's right. And the truth is they tried a contested convention. Remember Senator Mike Lee up there trying to contest
he was like Trump. Hardened over against President Trump, and not surprisingly his efforts fell short.
It did not work. I don't look, my answer, there's one static answer and then one dynamic answer, because I think Ashbrook was pretty persuasive in saying that the elements of the outside in recent years are significant, and you just never know what is going to happen that could change fundamentally the way that we approach this election, because there's been a lot of things that I never could have even imagined happen. But in a static environment, given everything we know now, I think New Hampshire.
Wow.
I think it's got to happen after Iowa. I really do, because someone needs to put a W on the board. And I find it impossible. I don't know, but I find it impossible to believe that if Donald Trump goes into Iowa and wins by 30 and then wins by 15, 20 in New Hampshire, that he's not going to win South Carolina. And then what do you say to the rest of the other candidates? Like, what's your pitch? That you're a mano a mano? And when you've maybe gotten second and third? That's a tough pitch for continued financing of an election when now you're going nationwide to Super Tuesday. Real tough.
So is that Ron DeSantis in that scenario?
Look, I think for all the things that we talked about with Ron DeSantis, he has a constituency that eats deeply into the Trump.
Yeah.
Where there's an awful lot of people in his camp who would otherwise perhaps support Trump, which makes that sort of an attractive mano-a-mano situation.
Well, you were saying second, third.
Both Nikki and DeSantis. I think it applies to both of them.
Okay. Sorry, I thought when you said second and third, because I'd assume Nikki would go 3-2.
Yeah, so if he goes,
got it.
if he goes 2-3 and into South Carolina, or if she goes 3-2 into South Carolina, I think it's all the same thing. But if somehow this consolidates after Iowa, and you have got a very different electorate there and the opportunity to put a win on the board. I mean, we saw this with McCain-Bush in 2000, where McCain was pretty much left for dead, and all of a sudden McCain blows out George W. Bush, and it changes the race, and all of a sudden becomes a real dogfight. That is the scenario in a static environment that I think could be real. But
it's a tough sell either way.
It is.
It's a tough sell either way, and here's why. Because if you're DeSantis, and this is static again, right, of like what we think might happen as of this moment. So if you're DeSantis and you go 2-3-3, not great, not a lot of momentum. If you're Nikki and go 3-2, 2 in your home state.
That's the problem.
Not a lot of momentum.
That's why I say it's New Hampshire.
Right.
Because I think you've got to consolidate. Look, if Christie, who we love on this program, if the CBS poll is right and he's running 19 points behind Nikki Haley, but still has 10 points in that electorate, if for some reason he comes to the conclusion that he can't do as well in New Hampshire as he would like to and walks away from it, his voters aren't going to Ron DeSantis. His voters are not going to Donald Trump. If they go to Nikki Haley and all of a sudden it's 44-39, that's a different situation. And then you could see other candidates in the field losing momentum to that kind of sea change. And that could be a thing.
Yeah.
But conversely, you have DeSantis in Iowa. If for some reason all of this outside noise is just noise, if it's actually not affecting what they say is a tremendous ground game there, and he overperforms, and if his numbers in Iowa look like Nikki's do in New Hampshire, then he's got a huge amount of momentum going. Right? And then I think he could make the case to others.
Well, especially because, like, in the majority of states, the primary electorate looks more like Iowa than it does New Hampshire.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. And I think, but all of this is sort of conjecture in a static environment.
Right.
That I think, you could game theory this thing to death. Bottom line is it looks really difficult right now for anybody to take on Donald Trump.
Well reasoned as always, my friend.
All right, question 10. And,
no, I think we're at 9. I think we're at 9.
Are we at 9?
Yep.
Okay. Jeez, I'm getting thrown off here. This one goes to Duncan.
Fantastic. This is from Zach. Hello, fellas. My name is Zach, and I have been raised to love God, America, and football. Come on. Here we go. I'm already reading ahead, and I'm worried.
This is a good question.
American.
I'm worried. I see Ashbrook smiling out of the corner of my eye, and I'm worried about what I'm about to read. I play semi-professional football in the great state of Northern Red, Michigan. Semi-professional football.
Man, I love
like
this
that
guy.
thing the Colts play in Indianapolis.
Here we go.
Yeah. Ashbrook clearly read ahead and was waiting for me to read that.
For the shoe, Michael.
Thanks a lot, Zach. I really appreciate it.
You'll get there someday, old man.
I'm going to attack Zach. Anyway, given everything that has happened to Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines this year and the controversy surrounding the seriousness and validity, parenthetical the lack thereof, of the NCAA investigation and Big Ten punishment of Harbaugh, do you fellas think Jim Harbaugh is the Donald Trump of college football world? Love you guys so much, but not more than angry Duncan. Well, love you too, Zach. All I'm going to say is I saw the Detroit Lions play in the old Silver Dome, and that was nothing to write home about.
Oh, jeez. He doesn't like Jim Harbaugh because he's a big Joe Paterno fan.
He attacked the Colts. So I thought that was fair.
Back.
Okay. Who wants to answer first?
I'll take this one first.
Okay.
I do think, I'm from Ohio. I do like Ohio State. I'm actually one of these guys from Ohio who respects Jim Harbaugh. I think he's a great coach. I think he's one of the best. I really think that anytime you have an era where you can have a Nick Saban and a Jim Harbaugh coaching around the same time, you're very lucky in college football because our forefathers watched Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes and everybody else, and we get Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban. And
not Ryan Day.
I noticed Ryan Day didn't factor into that.
I think Urban Meyer was a great coach. I think Jim Tressel was a good coach. I just think that a lot of people get so caught up in their allegiances that they lose sight of the fact that Harbaugh, who is walking these college football fields right now, is something special. And I think I really think he's a great coach, and I honestly, I think the Colts, they're going to do their best this year. They did their best against the Bengals a couple weeks ago.
The question isn't even about the Colts.
I don't know how we got to Jim Tressel and the Indianapolis Colts, but here we are.
Yeah.
But I will say that the Colts have a shot next year. You drafted a great quarterback, Michael, and I think Zach is a really smart guy.
Thank you for taking
with a good
that
head on
one,
his shoulders.
Yeah, thanks for taking that first.
Really appreciate it. I don't think that he's a Donald Trump character, but I do think in every profession there is somebody who has fallen out of favor with the elites, and in that situation, maybe there is some Trump-esque type quality, but he is played well within the confines of the rules for decades and decades.
He hasn't.
He's the son of a coach. His brother is a whale of a coach.
He is.
This guy is Mr. Football. This is not somebody who's an outsider who just dropped in on the scene and decided to blow up the system. This is somebody who has played and coached at a near Hall of Fame level his entire career. And my sense is that Jim Harbaugh, if you're not rooting for the Michigan Wolverines against the Alabama Crimson Tide, I feel sorry for you.
Now, what I would like to say is I just noticed Michael Duncan.
Yeah, I'm Googling list of Jim Harbaugh NCAA violations.
What he did not Google,
because they are very, very long.
Okay, what he did not Google was list of Jerry Sandusky NCAA violations.
I noticed that.
Wow.
I noticed that. There was a few, if I recall, maybe a shower scene or two.
My God,
big Penn State guy.
Penn State guy.
Look, I grew up watching him with my grandpa. What can I say?
So,
you want to go?
I'll take a quick stab
Okay.
at that. So I'm more of an NFL guy than a college football guy. So I'm not exactly going to weigh in directly on this, but I will say this, if I have to say anything about college football. Florida State is a trash.
Oh, my God, this is incredible.
Garbage
Off
organization.
the rails this has
Florida
gone.
State.
And their
What
fan
is
base
what do they
is
have
the
to
biggest
do with
group
it?
of whiners, period. Not just in athletics, not in sports, not in college. Their fan base is the sorriest bunch of whiners
Florida
I've
State-
ever seen in my life.
gotta
That
be
team's
kidding.
overrated. They got way more love than they deserve.
Cut his
And,
mic, Wolf.
I think they're
Cut
a
his
horrible
mic.
team with a terrible following.
This is
Horrible team with a terrible following.
cut his mic.
outrageous.
The blasphemy. I mean, he's just a troll. And the good news with Smug is what you see online is actually who he is. He knows that we all came out for Florida State, so here he is.
So, Duncan, what's your take here?
I don't think Jim Harbaugh is the Donald Trump of college football. He is in one sense, and that is like he has a long list of NCAA violations, some of which that are like super, super ticky-tacky bullshit.
cheeseburger.
With the cheeseburger.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of stuff he did like during COVID and other stuff where he sort of tampered, which I think allegedly, there were a lot of those allegations had a lot of merit.
Did they?
Yeah,
I don't know. He's still coaching.
they did. They actually
He's
had a lot of merit.
coaching and he's winning. Did they play the Penn State Nittany Lions this year?
I don't. What does that have to do with?
Oh, I
this
was just
question?
wondering.
Wait, did they play?
See, this is the thing that always
They're in the
happens.
same
This is what I'm
con-
noticing about the entire Q&A is like when the question is to me and about me, everybody gets to weigh in, but when I weigh in, then it's like, oh,
Well-
Duncan is filibustering.
Okay.
So can I talk now? Am I
Okay,
allowed
yeah,
to talk?
you finish.
Am I allowed to talk?
You
Am I allowed to
finish.
talk?
You
Am I allowed to
finish.
talk?
You finish, and then I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, you finish.
Okay.
Go
You
ahead.
reserve the balance of your time. Okay. I do not think he is the Donald Trump of college football because I don't really feel like he's kind of like football royalty. Like, I think, if anything, like Deion Sanders is more the Donald Trump of college football right now.
Yeah, you've said this.
In the way he's disrupted, the elite upper echelons of the sport with the new world that we live in with NIL and everything like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it didn't work out this year, and I predicted that at the beginning of the season,
Well,
and I
you're
was attacked for
Nostradamus,
that.
aren't you?
I was attacked for that. I
You
would
just
point
don't
that out.
like
Here,
rooting for nice things.
I
Again,
said the same thing. I said
again,
they're not
everybody-
going to make a bowl, and they're not going to have a winning season,
Everybody's
and this is
gonna
going to end terribly.
interrupt me
I
on my
said that,
question.
and then Duncan copies my take.
The question to me again. So I think I think Deion Sanders would be. I think it'd be more apt to say it was Deion Sanders. But I think Jim Harbaugh is a fine coach. The Wolverines are a great team, and I hope they beat Alabama. The
Okay,
end.
there it is. There it is. All right. Well, I think we covered the ground on college football.
We need to do a sports podcast.
And I love after we go through a self-admitted procedure where Smug admits he doesn't watch college football, then he professes great knowledge over Florida State and Deion Sanders.
There's one thing I do know.
All he did was listen to my segment defending Florida State and decided to countervail that.
But it's true. Everyone knows it's true.
Okay. All right, question 10, and I don't know what this is, but this goes to you, Smash.
Yeah, this-
Okay, so I actually saw a little bit of this.
Oh, you did?
No, I didn't see the question.
Oh.
But I saw this in the pre-production. I saw Wolf hand Ashbrook.
I'm worried about that.
An envelope, like a secret envelope, and we're not allowed to see it apparently. But I saw that in pre-production, so it's legit. This is a real question.
Yeah. Oh, who knows what the hell this could be?
Okay, it's a very special question. I'm going to reach into my pocket and
Oh, he saved the theatrics for us. This is great.
and pull it out.
Now he's
He
going to
wants to thank
slowly.
like PricewaterhouseCooper for like tallying this.
It looks like it's on a.
Yeah, no, I've carried this in my pocket for a couple of days. This is question number 10. As an avid fan of the program, I'd like to
Wait,
take...
who sent this in? Is there a name?
Just wait.
Usually we read the name
Just
first,
wait.
but okay.
As an avid fan of the program, I'd like to take this opportunity to address the relentless bashing of Michael.
Oh,
Oh my God.
no!
Is this from my mother?
I know
this
immediately.
is 100%.
I know immediately who it is.
My mom wrote in. I immediately know this is my mom. Is this my mom?
Oh God, I hope it is.
Let me finish. Please let me finish. After all, don't you think he deserves a safe place with the fellas when he's being attacked by libs on a daily basis? I mean, look, being married to the original old man for 40 plus years, I get how much fun it can be. I
This is
mean,
horrible.
The greatest gift.
it's just-
What a way to start the year.
So wonderful.
I love her so much. I mean that laugh and the fact that he is so disturbingly accurate at all times. I get it, but he gives his all for the cause. Dressing in ridiculous costumes, singing silly songs, chugging beers. He deserves more respect. On a much more serious note, keep up the good work. Just don't make me come up there. Signed, Michael's extremely proud mom, Mrs. Duncan, a.k.a. the Pitbull.
That's awesome.
I just think she's the best. I love this woman
awesome.
so much.
I love that, and I love, Wolf, that you saved that for a secret.
That was well played.
We've been waiting to hear from your mother for quite some time,
Yeah.
and I knew it was going to come in the form of some recriminations.
She has threatened on numerous occasions to call into the show.
I don't want to foreclose that as an option. Wolf, just,
there's been some times I've been talking to her on the phone, and she will complain about something that I said on the show or somebody said on the show, and always it ends with a threat to like call in.
So I want to weigh in. Can I?
This should be good.
So here's what I'll do because I'm a man of my word. I'll make a deal with Mrs. Duncan. You tell us the 3 most embarrassing stories about Michael growing up.
And the platform's yours.
And I'll stop. But until then, it'll get worse.
Yeah, it's gonna get worse.
That's a fair deal.
That isn't a threat
It's
because
not.
my mother would murder you.
No,
No. There would be a discussion.
this
She's
all
from
can
Pennsylvania.
She doesn't respond to threats. She cannot be negotiated with. She is like, it'd be like trying to like make a deal with the Joker. She would just kill you. She would just kill you.
It's the fairest deal.
And I say that with absolute love, Mom. I love you very, very, very much. And thank you for writing in. We appreciate it.
And also, I want to congratulate her for raising such a sweet and caring young man. He's a very nice boy.
He's trying to get out from underneath the knife.
But
at this
still,
point.
Well,
it's a great deal.
Might
And I
already
would
be
love to
done.
know, and also send in maybe the most embarrassing photo of him as a child.
Oh, we've already seen some of that.
What?
It's a great deal. And our listeners and viewers would love it.
There's one with a cello that I think we should.
He does
probably-
play the cello.
He plays the cello.
He did play
does.
the cello. He was a very accomplished musician. Anyway, no, listen.
a-
You're not
a
going.
vocalist.
You will not find a better family on this planet than the Duncan family, for which Michael attributes his name. So I appreciate the write-in. My mom listens to and thankfully keeps most of her opinions, of which she has many, to herself. Anyway, fellas, I think that concludes our Q&A. You got to remember to go to our YouTube station if you want to see us having fun in person. But otherwise, welcome to 2024. It's a big one. I think we did it.
Yeah, I think so. Absolute banger of an episode, gentlemen. And again, thank you so much to our listeners. And like Holmes said, hit up the YouTube, subscribe, see us in high definition. And thanks again, Mrs. Duncan, for that wonderful note. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Thursday. Stay ruthless.